go back to what Bill Belichick has said all along, that he was looking for consistency in production over time in whatever decision he was going to make at quarterback. So start with the fact that, in his view, it was Mac who gave him that. And then I think the second layer to this is, now that you've turned to Mac, what are you setting up to put him in the best position to succeed and to grow into a leadership role? And it looks to me like they want to sort of clear a path where he doesn't have that sort of alpha presence of a former NFL MVP behind him, and this sort of clears the path for him to be the guy, knowing that there's nothing behind him and players can rally around him.
I mentioned earlier, Mike, that Belichick does not wish cast. He doesn't squint and see what he hopes to see. He has a pretty sober view of quarterbacks, especially in the draft. And when he used a first-round pick on a quarterback, it told me something. A lot of people bring up his relationship with Nick Saban as one of the kind of influences there. How much of that is true to your knowledge?
Oh, it's true, Max, and I will tell you, 15th overall, they take Mac Jones, and when you watch, I've watched every practice in training camp this preseason, obviously all the games. He's running the Patriots offense, Max, and there was a day last week, the Giants were in town, it was Wednesday, Mac was the only quarterback because Cam wasn't there. At the final day, he was sort of away from the team due to the COVID misunderstanding. And it was a special moment, Max. Like, I haven't seen many practices like that. Like, you almost saw, like, maybe the torch is passing right here in this moment. And he's running the offense. And I hate to say it, it almost looked like Tom Brady, and I would never do that to Mac or compare him to him, but it's the same concepts, the empty formations, checking out of plays, setting the protection for the offensive line. And that was the picture that came into focus over the entirety of training camp and preseason, that when Mac was in there, it was the Patriot offense that you would vision when Tom Brady was there, and when Cam was in there, it was a different look. Not that that can't be successful, but it's just not sort of the Patriots' traditional offense.
Mike, let me ask you this really quickly. How has the team responded to Mac? Do you feel like the locker room wanted him as their guy?
So that's always hard, Molly, to get a feel for. But let me tell you this, like a veteran offensive lineman, Trent Brown, he's been around the block 7 years now. Yeah. He said of Mac Jones, I think he can be special. For a young guy, you don't expect to see him making some of the throws that he's been making. You hear from other veterans about the respect that Mac earned from them in short time with the way he went about his job. So I wouldn't say like it was a split, like it has to be Mac or it can't be Cam. I truly believe the players would have gone with whatever Bill decided, but I can tell you decisively that they were behind Mac from a standpoint of they watched the way he went about his work, and they were very impressed with what they saw.
And, Mac, I'll even take it a step further, right? What's one of the knocks on these young quarterbacks when they come to the NFL, right? They have to see receivers and tight ends wide open before they actually throw the football. Not with Mac Jones. What I've seen from him at Alabama, he's throwing with anticipation, which receivers love. Trust me, I know. He's throwing with anticipation, but you see him against the blitz at Alabama. He did a great job against the blitz. You just mentioned he's checking in and out of plays, getting the offense into the right play. The intelligence means a lot when it comes to being a quarterback in the New England Patriots system, because I've known a lot of guys who's went up there and played in New England, right, on their second stints or their last stints before they retired, and they tell me that that's one of the hardest offenses to even learn. So for Mac Jones to come in and grasp this offense the way he's doing, throw with anticipation, get this offense into the right play while he's out there on the football field, says a lot about Mac Jones and the way he attacks the game of football.
And, Harry, I want to give you just another layer of insight from the ground here in Foxborough. I think one of the things that really endeared Mac to the coaching staff was that he's going to make mistakes, right? Which player doesn't, especially a rookie? But what he didn't often do, Harry, was make the same mistake twice. And so what that allowed them to do was continue to sort of progress through training camp and the preseason and add on to whatever they're installing offensively, because they didn't have to keep going back and correcting things. They would correct it once, Mac would make the correction, and they would move forward. And I think that aspect, he's not an error repeater. Our Teddy Bruschi has sort of coined that phrase in New England. You don't want to be an error repeater. You won't be around long. That aspect of Mac, I believe, is a huge factor as to how he has elevated to the starting role, probably quicker than a lot of people thought, maybe even including Bill Belichick himself when this started.
I mean, that's major. Making a mistake once, not repeating again, especially when we're talking about football and anything in life. Marcus, do you want to get in on this?
Mike, I just have one question for you, and it's down the road. I just want to find out why he was released. I really want to know what the thought process was behind being released. Was it to give him an opportunity and an early start on the next destination, or was it that it is just that part you talked about having an alpha like Cam Newton and the personality like him maybe cause conflict when the season is going along? Or is it that they felt like Cam Newton just didn't have the goods anymore? I want to know if one of those three is the answer.
And you know what, Marcus? It requires another layer of reporting to get to the bottom of it. And I've often thought this from a theory perspective, that if they were going to go with Mac, that I almost thought that Cam has earned such respect from Bill Belichick for the way he came in here and propped up the Patriots program at a time when it was easy to sort of knock the Patriots program in a down year. Like Cam held the Patriots flag, right? And so I think he earned the respect of Bill and everyone, that it wouldn't surprise me if Bill went to Cam and said, look, how do you want to handle this? Do you want your release? Like, this might have been something that was Cam-driven. And I'm speculating, Marcus, which I don't like to do, but I think it requires another layer of reporting.
That's where my mind went first. I mean, from the outside, it looks like that coach is doing the right thing by the QB. Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.